Hello and welcome to Smaulgld. In case you missed the top gold, silver, and crypto stories for the week ended August 19, 2018. Trump, our cherished dollar. Trump touts dollar strength in feud with Turkey. Gold, silver, and platinum hit multi-year lows. Tension shifts to former Associate Deputy Attorney General Bruce Ohr and his wife Nellie. And former head of counterintelligence FBI agent Peter Strzok was fired. And former CIA director Brennan's security clearance was revoked. Andrew Cuomo, not Mario Cuomo, the governor of New York currently, said during the week that America was never great, and Elon Musk breaks down. Those are some of the stories we'll be covering in this week's Week in Review. By the way, who knew Steven Crowder sells mugs? And this is even apparently before the famous Smaulgld mug. He even has a mug club. And this proves disparate cultures all value mugs and have discovered their value. Indeed, mugs are universal. And there is your Smaulgld Super Classic mug still available for $23.99 with free shipping, as well as the Smaulgld Classic mug for $19.99. And don't forget, you can put Mountain House in a mug. Collapse is coming. Are you ready? Buy a Smaulgld mug today. All right, let's see what we got during the week. So during the week, we have each and every night, 7 days a week, at 8 o'clock on YouTube, a live stream. And here's some of the topics we covered. We discussed breach of social media contracts. And that was a discussion about ways of content providers that get thrown off of social media platforms, providing them with a type of remedy. We covered that in 2 shows. The de-dollarization crowd gets smacked with reality. We covered that basically twice. We also did the de-dollarization implosion, covering all of the countries with very weak currencies. They're the ones making the most noise about de-dollarizing and crushing the dollar. Well, indeed, those currencies are getting hurt the most, and you can see why they want to de-dollarize, because their fates are tied into the interest rates and the strength of the dollar, and when the dollar gets strong, and they've borrowed a lot of money in dollars, then it's very difficult for them to pay it back. So the dollar is a dual-edged sword for them. It enables them to access capital markets by issuing dollar-denominated bonds, but then it makes it hard for them to pay it back. We also talked about the dictation of moral and economic value, and we discussed alternative media and gold pumper logical fallacies. We went through about 8 or 9 typical logical fallacies when people are pushing narratives, whether they be conspiracy theories or rationales for gold or silver to skyrocket. And then we covered the same theme, almost identical theme, in horses or transportation, period. We discussed how the past doesn't necessarily mean what's happened in the past is going to happen in the future. And that's when people say, well, gold has been money for 5,000 years. Reasoning by analogy, you can say the same thing about horses. Horses were transportation for 5,000 years. Until something faster and more convenient came along, i.e. the automobile, even though it was more dangerous, but it was indeed faster. Maybe we're seeing the shift away. I actually believe we have, that gold is no longer money. It has properties of money, but it does not do as well on the use of it as a currency because people do not carry around gold coins, and it's much easier to transact digitally through cards or through chips or whatever people are using now. Of course, we discussed at length the pitfalls of digital currencies. We're not just talking about Bitcoin. The dollar is in digital form too. But that people generally select the faster, more convenient option rather than necessarily the one that's the soundest and the one that doesn't pollute and the one that's the safest. They pick the one that's fastest. And then also we talked about just last night about some recent and not so recent history in the United States where presidents actually signed executive orders curbing freedom of speech, and we compared and contrasted that to Donald Trump's statements about the press today. Let's look at the gold market. Gold closed down under 1,200, opened the week at 1,211, closed at 1,184, but it did close on an uptick on Friday, and silver closed the week at 1477. Same with silver. It was down all week, but it did manage to rise up at the end of the week, but on Friday, but it did close down for 1527, and the gold silver ratio is at about 81:1. Please don't remember to donate to Smaulgld via PayPal if you enjoy this channel, or You can also donate via Patreon, Bitcoin, or Litecoin. The details are on the Smaulgld website and below this YouTube video and BitChute. Just during the week, some interesting tweets here. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, they're celebrating, I think it's the, I don't know, 70th anniversary or so of the Social Security Act, but Franklin Delano Ponzi signing away the future for Social Security there. Let's see what else happened here. Here's an interesting, I do these polls from time to time. In a full-blown financial crisis, what do? Do you buy gold, buy Bitcoin, buy silver, stockpile cash? This is in the lead up, and the big winners were you stockpile cash or you buy gold. Silver and Bitcoin, not so much, not considered a safe haven asset, at least by the 106 people that voted. Those choices only drew 14% each. A clear 70, almost 75% thought gold and cash were the way to go. Did you know that JP Morgan owns stocks? That is all I need to know. They know it is coming. This is the whole argument about JP Morgan has silver. They know it's coming. First of all, there's no indication that they do have stocks. You can, silver. You can actually go to the JP Morgan filings and see at least the funds that they operate. They operate stock funds. They also operate or act as trustee to a silver fund, but there's no indication that JP Morgan owns these stocks for its own portfolio or even owns any silver. But people can point to things and say they own stocks, they know what's coming, I'm buying stocks too. Just as foolish to say that as it is to say that they have silver. Did you know that copper's been money for 10,000 years? It conducts electricity. China buys thousands of tons of copper every year. We could not live our lives without copper. Copper helps transport water so we can drink through copper pipes. Same things they say about silver. Does that mean that copper is now undervalued and we should start channels praising copper? Now here's something that also I ran across, and before we get to the top stories, about election 2018. Now what they're saying is they're talking about a blue wave, and it's very interesting. You see these people supposedly applying some type of scientific method, like Bruce Silver, I don't know his name, but all the polling outfits, for example, they said that Clinton was going to win 92% chance. This was like a day or two before the election. And first of all, they don't know what people are going to do on election day. They only have an indication, but clearly no one knows what voters are going to do in November. I mean, it's only August, and things can happen between now and November that may make people change their minds. Events could happen that could be defining events. But the other thing is they're pointing to the fact that the Democrats are sending a lot of people out to the polls in their primaries. So they're looking to put their candidate up against the Republicans. So they have 2 or 3 or 4 candidates running, having heavy turnout. And the Republicans on their side are not having the big turnout. Now, there's a huge difference in my mind between a primary and the actual election. So what I think is happening, it's possible, I have no evidence of this, but that the Democrats are going out and voting because they have candidates that they're very passionate about, they want to see beat Republicans. So they may have some people that are on the Bernie Sanders or Ocasio-Cortez type, and those people are passionate, they want to get a socialist nominated, and there's those traditional Democrats. And so you're seeing a lot of passion on the Democratic side to try to get their candidate in. However, I think on the Republican side, they're not that excited about running against each other, because generally there's one conservative running against another conservative, so it's not necessarily that big of a choice, so the people aren't getting riled up about it. Where I'm leading with this is I think, however, Republicans will be just as riled up as the Democrats come November to vote for their candidate, whoever the ultimate nominee might be. So I'm not taking as a sign that the Democrats are showing up in bigger numbers in their primaries. I'm just taking that as a sign that there's a lot of passion as to whom they want to run against the Republicans. But I think once the Democrats and Republicans have picked their candidates, you'll probably see equal enthusiasm, and then I think it might be close. Not a prediction, but just a different way of analyzing it based on what I'm seeing. Now, Trump has come out and started blasting the social media companies, saying he's not going to allow censorship. He's done a couple of tweets on that. He says that social media is totally discriminating against Republican conservative voices, speaking loudly and clearly for the Trump administration. We won't let that happen. Now, I don't know what he means by he's not going to let that happen. What's he going to do? But he says that they're closing down opinions of many people on the right while others are doing nothing. He also mentioned that if you're looking to censor people, you might as well look at CNN and MSNBC. But he said, you know, if you're interested in weeding out fake news, but he says, I don't ask you to do that. I don't ask that their sick behavior be removed. I get used to it and watch with a grain of salt, or I don't watch at all. Now, I think that's actually the proper approach. I agree with him that censorship is a very dangerous thing and absolutely impossible to police. All you can do is try to form some type of consensus, try to have algorithms. It's a very, very dicey place. Some people, I think there's a website or some social media platform that's basically going to take the First Amendment as its guide. And I think that's a lot easier because that's a lot broader. But we'll see where this all leads. I don't know what the president can do outside of executive order, which I think would be meddling a little bit too much. We'll have to see. But here's Andrew Cuomo. He said America was never great. We're not going to make America great again. America was never great. And because he listed all the problems that women have had over time, they haven't really been fully engaged and participated and empowered in society. Now, having said that, he then turned back and he realized that that was not really a vote-winning strategy, and he backpedaled from it. But of course, Donald Trump's not going to let him forget it, and nor are his opponents. And here he backtracks. He says, of course, America has been great. It was an inartful way of saying it. I think he says a lot of things inartfully, as does his brother. His dad was a much more eloquent speaker than his two sons happened to be. And then here's Donald Trump piling on again. Now, Tesla, Musk. I've been talking about this guy for the last 2 or 3 years. Not him personally, but the company. And this is not investment advice. I don't buy or sell Tesla stock. But I've just watched it, and I'm astounded by the fanboys there, fan club, that this company has for selling battery-powered cars at a loss, a huge loss, not selling that many of them, and having Boy Genius here. I used to think that he seemed to be a little bit off kilter, but he really lost it in the last few weeks, making statements about how he didn't want to answer questions, and then storming off of an investor call maybe a month or two ago, and then claiming the company wouldn't need to have financing because it was going to be cash flow positive. It wasn't. Then he, out of the blue, tweets that the company is going to take itself private. He's already got the deal locked down, and the board says, no, we haven't. And then he gives some interview. He says he's overworked. He's crying about stuff. Here's it. But why would Elon Musk only face a minor fee if the SEC investigates its tweet storm about taking Tesla private? Here's why. I didn't even read it, because two systems of justice. I mean, basically what he did was he went on Twitter and he smashed the people that were short on it, and the stock price rose merely because of the fact, not only did he say he was thinking of taking it private, which again, I don't know why anyone would. The reason you take a company private is you think you can maximize value better than the stock market's awarding it. But the stock market is what gives Tesla most of its value. It's not getting its value from its dividend or its earnings. It's getting value because of the speculative value that the stock market is willing to award it. If you had $63 billion and you bought Tesla, good luck trying to make $63 billion back in profits to pay for the price that you paid for it. But in any event, he that's when he not only put out that he wanted to take it private, he put a price on it, which was like $30 or $40 higher than the then current market price. So of course the price went up to almost that price. Then he says, I was not on weed and tearful interview. Musk admits nobody reviewed going private tweet. You don't just as a CEO. They know better than this, than to tweet out, especially material, non-public information like that. And then it turns out might not even have been true. Unbelievable. So he's saying it's been an excruciating year. Very, very odd. All right, now Peter Strzok was finally fired, and then Donald Trump jumped up and down on that, saying Agent Strzok was just fired from the FBI finally. The list of players in the FBI and DOJ gets longer and longer. There have been a lot of firings at the FBI. You've had Page left on her own. You've had Comey leaving. You have McCabe left under criminal referral. And remember, Strzok was the one who's in charge of the Hillary Clinton investigation, which ultimately ended in exonerating her by Comey and bizarre facet at a press conference on July 5th. And then also he was in charge of the very beginning of commencing the Russia probe. And there is Peter Strzok. No evidence of bias in my actions. That's what he said when he went to Congress. And then he had the nerve, I think, to put out a GoFundMe campaign, and he raised about $450,000. I don't know quite what he needed the money for. He may need the money, but for no charges have been levied against him, to my understanding. He has not been referred for criminal prosecution. So what's he raising? $450,000. All right, let's see what else happened in the world of Mueller and so on. Trump just laid into him, said he was corrupt, had anti-Trump animus. Others at the FBI should be criminally investigated for the way they conducted this investigation. Instead, Mueller is pretending nothing went wrong. He did use Strzok, and he used the Clinton DNC dossier. The whole thing should be shut down. All right. And he's actually quoting Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch. Now, the attention has shifted over to Bruce Ohr, and it's interesting that only Fox News, they call conservative media, is covering this, whereas the New York Times and others are just basically saying this is some type of head-scratcher conspiracy theory, that why they're focusing on Bruce Ohr and his wife, Nellie. Now, if you had any sense of investigation, you'd say, well, his wife did work for Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS was the source of the Steele dossier, and that there were some back-channel communications after the election between Steele and Bruce Ohr. So, I mean, that's enough to tell me that you can't prove anything from that, but it's certainly something worth looking into and not just dismissing as some type of conspiracy. And in fact, when Trump revoked Brennan's clearance, his security clearance, top secret security clearance, he listed a bunch of other people that he was considering removing the clearances for, and Bruce Ohr was on the list, but Bruce Ohr still works at the FBI. Now that would be, I think, unprecedented, and they might as well fire him if they're going to take his security clearance away, because he can't do his job if he doesn't have a security clearance. The rest of them, it's a different issue. They're already gone. They don't necessarily even need a security clearance. It's really a political issue. They're trying to say that he is being mean-spirited and taking it away. And Brennan, he actually wants to sue for I don't know what basis he's going to sue. He's not entitled to a security clearance. That security clearance is for the benefit of the country, not for him. And if the country determines via the president that they don't need that service from Brennan, then there's no reason for him to have it. He can only argue that he needs it, but for what? To go on MSNBC and trash the president? He doesn't need a security clearance. It's not required for him to do his job. If it's required for him to do his job on MSNBC to write a book, then that's a clear reason why he shouldn't have the clearance. All right, what else happened? Now, here's something new. From the 2016 Trump Tower meeting, looks increasingly like a setup by Russia and Clinton operatives. And this is another one of these set of facts that looks suspicious. It's similar to the George Papadopoulos being the one who started the FBI being interested in the Russian angle. Apparently what happened with Papadopoulos was he was provided information by supposedly a Russian spy who told him that the Russians had thousands of emails that implicated Hillary Clinton. And he was told that a couple of times. And then he told an Australian diplomat about this. So that then the Australian diplomat called the FBI and says, oh, this guy from the Trump campaign, who really was just a very young kid trying to get some work from the Trump campaign on foreign policy with Turkey or something. And so that was the basis to say, well, wait a minute, the Trump campaign knows stuff. They're talking to Russians. But apparently there's some suspicion that the guys that Papadopoulos spoke to that got the information about Russia having Clinton emails were actually U.S. and British intelligence assets. And that when he told the Australian diplomat, that person is also somehow connected to Hillary Clinton. So it was almost like they set up Papadopoulos, gave him this information, and then when he leaked it to a friendly in Australia, the diplomat then had the pretext to call the FBI and say, hey, this guy's talking to Russians. He told us that there's these Clinton emails. And that ties into, I think they told him this right after they found out that the Clinton DNC emails had been hacked. So this actually is a very clever way of, now, I don't know if this happened, but this is what they're speculating. And it all comes down to whether this guy, Masood, whatever his name is, the guy who gave the information to Papadopoulos, actually is not a Russian asset, but actually a U.S. British intelligent asset. Now, the other day, Papadopoulos, and this really gets heavily into conspiracy theory, he was supposed to be sentenced on September 7th, and the other day, Special Counsel Mueller suggested that he get 6 months. Now, they said all he did was lie, and there's no evidence that he did anything, collusion or anything, doesn't tie back to Trump, so it's you get between 1 and 6 months. But people were saying that the only reason he pled guilty was because he didn't know about all this stuff, and apparently his wife told him he should withdraw his plea, and now the Mueller team is saying they want to seal the records. But what Papadopoulos apparently knows now is that who he talked to may not indeed have been a Russian agent. If that's the case, and he put out a tweet, which is very weird, he put TikTok, so it may mean that he's going to withdraw his plea and ask to see this information against him. That would be a very interesting development. Now, this other thing, someone else wrote an article, Trump Tower meeting looks increasingly like a setup by Russian and Clinton operatives. This is the whole famous meeting between, I think it was Trump's son and Ivanka. I remember, but there were some people in the Trump campaign and they met with a Russian. But again, it looks like possibly that this meeting was also set up because the meeting came in from out of the blue. So it's almost like they tried to entice the Trump team, this is the theory, into looking like they had information from Russia, looking like they had met with the Russians to try to draw some type of nexus between the Russians and the Trump campaign. All right. And then here's some more. So what may either be speculation, because, you know, we go through this in the gold and silver. This is either speculation or it's something that requires further investigation. What I find interesting, though, is I can understand dismissing speculation, but before you dismiss it, you need to take a look. And there is enough information there to indicate, well, maybe there's more information that needs to come out and more information that needs to be dug into. But it seems media outlets like the New York Times, they don't want to do that. They just want to dismiss it out of hand, which is not really what a newspaper, they're complaining about the free press being a check on power. Well, that check on power goes two ways. You don't just check the power of the presidency, you also check the power of your intelligence agencies. But it's possible, some people say, that the newspapers are an arm of the intelligence agencies. All right, there's Brennan looking very pissed off, but he always looks like that. All right, what else do we got? And here's all the explanations of her saying why Brennan should have had his security clearance revoked. Now, Trump says he's a stain on the country. We deserve better than this. Well, actually, he didn't say that. That's what former Secret Service agent and author of the new book Spygate, The Attempted Sabotage of Donald Trump, Dan Bongino, said. And then Trump says, thank you, Dan. Good luck with the book. All right. And this guy, this Senator Kennedy, I think he's from Louisiana, he actually called Brennan a butthead. Interesting. Now, here's Papadopoulos' wife. She says he should scrap his plea deal with Mueller. This, I believe, was on Thursday or Wednesday. And on Friday, late Friday, he wrote TikTok, which is very interesting. We'll see what happens. Now, this guy, Wall Street Journal, says Bruce Orr, we talked about him, was deeply tied to the Clinton campaign while inside the FBI. And his wife worked for Fusion GPS. And they uncovered emails that said DOJ's Bruce Orr wrote Christopher Steele was very concerned about Comey's firing, afraid they will be exposed. Now, that's not a conspiracy theory. That is a email that's been uncovered. It doesn't prove anything, but it definitely requires looking into, and that's where they're going to have this guy before Congress, I think, sometime next week. And there's Trump saying he's going to revoke more security clearances, and he's lashing out at Mueller, saying that Mueller is big buddies with Comey, and he thinks what Bruce Orr did is a disgrace, as well as his wife. So it appears Trump has bought into, supposedly, the, quote, conspiracy theories that are being patched together on the right by conservative, by Jared, I think his name is, who wrote a book, The Russia Hoax, by Dan Bongino, by Joseph DeGenova. Joseph DeGenova was a former, I think he was an FBI agent. No, I think he might have been a federal prosecutor. And Giuliani, all these people seem to think that there is a commonly held view that they worked to get rid of the Hillary Clinton charges. They ran a phony investigation into her. They exonerated her before they even interviewed her or any of the key witnesses, and that they concocted the quote insurance policy to make it look like Trump colluded with Russia. And that continues to this day. They didn't just stop after he won. They wanted to, before he got inaugurated, they wanted to taint his presidency. But there was a dossier that showed him doing illicit things. And then to this day, there's a segment of the political followers and of the media that still insist that Donald Trump has been compromised and that he's working for the Russian. And there's the George Papadopoulos TikTok. Very interesting. That may mean he's going to withdraw his plea. And he may already know something. I think the interesting thing that I've seen so far in all this is when Donald Trump says something, it generally turns out to be true. And I don't think it's because he's got any superior foresight. I think he actually knows a lot of what's happened. I think he has access to a lot of intelligence. I think he's seen a lot of things. There are a lot of things that have been so for example, a lot of the stuff that's in the Justice Department that they haven't given over, they haven't redacted, he may have already seen it. He may have already seen it redacted, and he's playing along. That's my theory. I have nothing, I don't know that, but it just seems that no one could be that smart to say they did this, and this, and then a few months later you find out they did it. All right, and there's Brennan going to take legal action to get his security clearance back. Now, dollar collapse, gold hoarding countries, Kazakhstan, Turkey, Iran, Russia, see their countries' currencies crushed. Yeah, they bought gold because they knew what was coming. That's what people don't understand. A country owning gold does not protect them against anything. It only gives them, buys them some time. It's not like an individual can protect their portfolio with a certain amount of gold. They can't have enough gold to do that. You're dealing with countries, for example, Russia, $500 billion in reserves. They only have $80 billion in gold, and they got a lot of it. So it doesn't really help the currency because it's not really backed by gold. That's just they have a good gold position. Rupee hits record low, but that's because not only does the gold on the Reserve Bank of India not help the rupee, they don't have that much, they have 557 tons, but that the Indian people have the gold. They have 23,000 tons. Yeah, Kremlin says backs use of national currencies for bilateral trade. Of course they're going to say that. And then Russia says they're going to cut holdings of U.S. securities amid sanctions. They don't really have that many U.S. securities. What they probably have left a lot of, they probably sold their treasuries, but I don't think they definitely didn't convert it into gold. They converted it probably into other short-term obligations or even cash. They probably hold a lot of dollars and euros. And there we go, de-dollarization. I like this from Chris. Russia and Turkey are planning on dumping the dollar and trading in national currencies. Let me explain something to you folks. This is called barter. There's nothing new. Cave people used it all the time. All right. There's Russia. Let's see what else we got during the week. Yeah, India says it's not worried about a weak rupee if other currencies depreciate. So I guess if everyone is screwed, they're not. I don't understand. Now this is a foolish thing. This is Bloomberg. Forex traders are on alert as U.S. dollar intervention risk climbs. I don't think the United States is going to intervene in the dollar. Let's talk about this right here, where Trump is saying that our cherished dollar is going higher. He wants the dollar. He has no view whether he wants a strong dollar or a weak dollar. He says he wants a weaker dollar because that China had the weak yuan and therefore it gave them a trade advantage. But now that he has the tariffs on, actually a stronger dollar is good because now the United States can buy the products. So let's say that China now has tariffs. That makes the products more expensive for Americans because now Trump has put a 25% tariff. But a stronger dollar takes away some of that sting if the dollar goes up 5, 7, 10%. But not just that. A stronger dollar is actually crushing his enemies, Iran and Turkey. And so for now, it makes sense to have a strong dollar. So I don't think they're going to intervene because normally when you have these issues like where the Turkish lira gets clobbered, there usually is some foreign intervention to prevent that not being allowed to happen. They're allowing the Turkish lira to get clobbered. There's no selling of dollars. And he's putting the squeeze on them through the dollar. That doesn't mean that Trump wants a strong dollar all the time. But right now it actually makes sense. It also makes sense for U.S. manufacturers are going to sell internally to have a strong dollar, because they're not probably ready to do a lot of exporting yet. But and at that point, then it might make sense to have a weaker dollar. But if U.S. manufacturers are going to take the place of some goods that would otherwise be imported into the country from China, the stronger dollar helps those countries. Amid record gold buying, the Russian ruble falls again on emerging market jitter. So you see, the gold buying isn't helping these countries like Turkey's buying gold, Kazakhstan, Russia, Iran. It's not helping. Here it is, our cherished dollar. Donald Trump. Our economy is doing better than ever. Money is pouring into our cherished dollar like rarely before. Companies' earnings are higher than ever. Inflation is low and business optimism is higher than ever. For the first time in many decades, we are protecting our workers. So you can see clearly he's in favor of a stronger dollar. Here's Turkey's been adding gold to reserves. Now this was interesting. Trump said that our country was built on tariffs. I don't know about that. And tariffs are now leading us to new trade deals, as opposed to the horrible unfair trade deals that he inherited before. Now look at China. They're supposed to be deleveraging. They're not. They realize now they have to up the ante, and they have to continue to issue more and more debt. No worries, it's just internal debt. But Chinese bad loans surge, most on record amid deleveraging. The idea that China is going to crush the dollar. China is in a very bad position with its debt situation. But my Belt and Road, China is going to end dollar hegemony. Belt and Road. Yeah, well, Malaysia basically canceled all major infrastructure projects backed by China. That's the beginning of the Belt and Road. That's where China meets Malaysia, and then they head west. And there it is. Scraps China deals. And of course, there's allegations that China is detaining millions of people in its, I think these are Muslim areas. But gold, back yuan, game changer. There it is, game changer. Yep, when in doubt, borrow more money and build more infrastructure. China revs up spending plan as economy cools. Investment growth at record low. Yep, let's see. Now, China vows to control debt despite fresh stimulus for cooling economy. So they were supposed to be deleveraging. Then they decided, well, we can't do that. We got to issue more debt. But they're going to get it under control. I don't understand. Whatever debt is it, whatever debt they issue, they control. More debt is not putting your debt under control. China's central bank bars some offshore lending and latest move to support the yuan. Here, Google employees revolt over censored search engine project for China. I mean, don't they know that China has gold and they back the yuan with it? Don't they know China is controlling the price of gold? That's the new one. Do they even read Sun Tzu? There it is. China to crush the dollar. The yuan at new load. My gold back yuan. Unbelievable. Here's all the Turkish stuff. Buy lira for national debate. That's not going to work. There's your foreign bank exposure. People lining up to splurge at pricey like Tiffany stores, and I think this is Louis Vuitton, Dior. They got those French designers, and people are looking to take their foreign, they're going to buy that in lira. And then Erdogan says Turkey should boycott Apple and other stuff. Good luck with that. And he says the lira will strengthen. The dollar has lost credibility. Sounds like a gold pumper. Toilet paper dollar. And they're still not letting the pastor free. It's just unbelievable. But they're going to double tariffs on U.S. imports. China might be able to go tit for tat, but I don't think they can with the United States on a trade war. Turkey certainly can. I don't know what they think they're doing. Turkey's credit rating was cut further into junk on risk of volatility in the lira. All right, there's all this Bruce. All right, now Venezuela. They're going to accept the yuan for oil and crush the dollar. 95% devaluation. Unbelievable. New foreign exchange rate tied to cryptocurrency. What a mess Venezuela is. Now, Coinbase added Ethereum Classic. I don't know why they added that one. That's not one of the top coins. But then I found out Gemini, its 3 coins, which is as large as Coinbase, they say. It has Ethereum, not Classic, Ethereum, Bitcoin, but not Bitcoin Cash. And they have Zcash as their 3rd coin, and they're thinking maybe of adding the Litecoin. People think they're adding Litecoin. And there's Litecoin. Let's see. Talking about blockchain, Litecoin. There's Gemini. See, Gemini is going to go to the Litecoin Foundation Summit, so that's why I think Gemini is going to jump in. Still people pouring money or tended to pour money into the crypto space, but as the price drops. But here you go. Blockchain says it's adding 50,000 new users a day. I don't think that's right. You can't be adding 50,000 users a day. Maybe they are. I don't know. 50,000. Coinbase says they have 20 million users. Maybe they are. Or maybe a lot of people are just opening up 20, 30 wallets. Who knows? But that is, whatever it is, if it is true, it does highlight that there's no loss of enthusiasm even as the price goes down. All right. Kazakhstan, Turkey, we've already talked about that. Platinum lowest since December 2008. Gold price lowest in 18 months. Silver lowest since April 2016. Perth Mint's going to launch a gold ETF, just what we need, another gold ETF. And it looks like July's India preliminary report on gold imports surge as jewelers replenish inventory. We've talked about how silver imports have been really strong throughout the first half of the year. Gold not so much, but it looks like in July they have rebounded. And again, you know, we've talked about this too. The Indians buy gold and silver, import more of it and more of it when the price goes down, and the price has been going down. Bitcoin pumper, we're clearly seeing that coming around. And where do you see that? You see that on not MSNBC, Fast Money with Brian Kelly all the time. But here's an interesting one. The dot-com bubble popped. The price of Priceline dropped from $94 a share to $4, but now Priceline is at $1,900. So that's the idea that it happened there. It can happen here. Here's Kim.com, Tim.pump. Trust me, buy crypto and gold. Your dollar will become worthless. With U.S. economic collapse and old money currencies will crash. Times will get tough, but you'll be fine if you hedge some of your assets in preparation for the crash. The big crash is coming 100%. Now, here's an interesting one. I watched this interview. This woman, I don't know, she does something for some crypto company, CBS Fast Money. It says Bitcoin is stranded 78% from its high, but at Melt Dem says the crypto crisis is building towards a major rally. Maybe I'm wrong, but I did listen to it once. I didn't hear her say that. I heard her say that it might take a few years for adoption or something, but it's interesting how they just push this. All right. Now, it's not just Fast Money that pumps Bitcoin. CNBC Futures Now. Bitcoin getting a bounce. And Jeff Kilberg, whoever he is, thinks it still has room to run. And here we got Change the World despite crash. Bitcoin believers say best is yet to come. John McAfee talking about $1 million by 2020. Still, Litecoin pumper. They're talking about adoption. SSM service. A huge step towards mass adoption. Litecoin to the moon. There you go. Predictions. Yep, so you got all these Litecoin, Bitcoin pumpers. Then you got your gold pumpers. I don't know what this guy, Rubino, spectacular gold. COT report forecasts a huge 6 months ahead. Okay. Game changer. All you need to know. Here you go. The professionals are using this opportunity to go long. That is all you need to know. No, you need to know a lot more than that. And remember, next time you hear the pumper community all telling you the same stories about game changers for gold and gold backed and gold back yuan, gold exchangeable for yuan, gold triangle, end of dollar hegemony, just remember this chart. There is, I think the price of the yuan was down here when the gold back yuan, it wasn't even a gold back yuan was launched. It was just a petro yuan, or it's just a oil futures contract denominated in yuan. That was going to be a game changer and create massive demand for gold, and it was going to crush the dollar. No. There you go. More of this nonsense here. Yep, 10 years of silver set to skyrocket for monetary experts, and you get this. The Great Pumpkin. Waiting for... Yeah, Phase 2 starts today. The biggest changes in history. This is from April 2nd, 2010. Are coming this decade. Biggest opportunity in the history of mankind. Biggest wealth transfer. Phase 2 starts today. Price of silver is $17.92. When this big, the longest portion of the bull run started, and now it is $14.41. Game changer. Now this, like spotted from the beginning, the sunken warship worth billions in gold, likely part of cryptocurrency scam. So they say. Here's an interesting story. George Washington gold coin sells for $1.7 million. And U.S. economic data was strong. U.S. retails increased strongly in July. And second quarter productivity strongest in 3 years. But U.S. household debt increased to $13.3 trillion. It looks like, though, they're going to say that the GDP from the Atlanta Fed is at 4.1%, I believe. Thank you very much for listening, and make sure to join me each and every night at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, Smaulgld YouTube channel, where we do a live stream. And also don't forget to pick up your Smaulgld mugs at the Smaulgld site or at the Smaulgld store. All the links are below this YouTube, below this BitChute, and on the Smaulgld website. And not just mugs, there's an entire Smaulgld store where you can get magnets, post-its, a lot of items for your office, mouse pads, pens, and other mugs that are not available from Smaulgld headquarters directly. Thanks very much for listening.